Welcome to Soul Connections with your host, Elena Angel.
Hello, this is Elena Angel and Soul Connections, the space for soulful conversations and explorations in consciousness. In this show, you'll always hear us talking about the soul purpose, soul journey, soul evolution, soulmates, and soul connections, of course. Surprisingly today, you won't. My featured guest, Louise Armstrong, is a psychotherapist and relationship coach who doesn't use such language. She has a powerful, down-to-earth approach, and yet at the same time, she's one of the most passionate, soul-driven practitioners I have ever come across. Today, I have the great pleasure of sharing with you a recent interview with Louise, in which she shares her incredible journey of transformation and much wisdom and practical tools that we can all use to enjoy long-lasting, loving relationships. Hers is such an amazing story. I know it will inspire you. And stay tuned to the end to get the most of her expertise, to find out about her free giveaways and her special contribution to our free prize draw. Hello, Louise, and welcome to Soul Connections.
Hello, and it's wonderful to be here. Thank you so much.
I'm so excited to be welcoming Louise Armstrong to the show today. She's a psychotherapist and a relationship coach. And Louise, it was about a year ago that we first connected, isn't it?
It was. I can't believe it. Where does the time go? And so many things have changed in both of our lives. We're actually both in different countries now.
Yes, exactly. Isn't it amazing? I really want you to have plenty of time to tell us about your personal journey and about all the wonderful work that you do, because it is so valuable, and I know that there's a very profound motivation for what you do. It's not just any career choice. This is really your life, isn't it?
It has become my purpose. It has become my life. In fact, it's become my way of life. And by deep, I didn't plan it. I didn't think about it. It kind of just happened, for sure.
So tell us more about your personal journey. I mean, I know that your passion is to help people around the world to master emotional intelligence and to have lasting, loving relationships. So how was it for you? What was your journey?
So in a nutshell, it really started with a very, very destructive relationship with my mother, which I've had for really as long as I can remember. And I'm in my early 50s now. And so for about around 35 years, I really tried to change this. And I failed at every single hurdle. So we've had this most terrible relationship most of my life. This really affected the relationship I had with my 3 children, the relationship with my husband, the relationship I had with my money, with my health, with my friends, and with my work colleagues, all to different degrees. But the closer the people, the more important the people were to me, the more they were affected. And it came to a point where I really felt I needed to sort this relationship out once and for all. So I flew back to the UK. I asked my mother if she would put everything behind us, put all my issues, behind her, and I would put all the stuff behind me, and we would start with a clean slate. And I thought this was honestly going to be the best move forwards. To hear the words, "I don't love you, this is your stuff, I will never change," was just devastating. It was not what I was prepared for. It wasn't what I expected at all. We quickly left the UK, flew back to Dubai, and it was there I had a turning point in my life. I had never actually been responsible for myself. And it was at that moment I thought, if you're not going to change, I am. And that's exactly what I did. I actually threw myself into therapy and coaching. And because we couldn't afford it at the time, because we were in a massive financial mess, if you like. It was a big financial fiasco that we got ourselves into, no surprise there. And I was also suffering very from poor health as well. I had skin cancer. I had a very, very messy hysterectomy at the time. So things were not good. But I did manage somehow to throw myself and afford this therapy and coaching. And because it was kind of the last thing, I didn't have, lots of coaching things. If this one didn't work, I'll try the next. I had to do it. And that was my saving grace, because I did. Every single thing I was asked to do, I did. I worked really, really hard at it, and my life totally transformed within a few months. And during this time, my eldest daughter, who was 19 at the time, also said to me, "Get out of my life. I want nothing more to do with you. You're just like your mother." Wow, epic fail. So you can imagine, Elena, how devastating this was also for my husband, because now not only has he got a wife who's seemingly neurotic in his eyes with her mother, and now our daughter's left our lives as well. So, he was not a happy chap at the time. So there was a lot of stress on our personal relationship. So I had these big things going on. But I stuck at the therapy. And about 8 months later, I invited my parents to come and stay in Dubai for 2 weeks. It was my exam. It was a big test. I had no idea how it was going to go. I had to let go of the how. I had to let go of the results. I had to let go of everything. And it was nothing short of a miracle. I was not affected by anything she said, which in the past had really triggered those past wounds. And I was then, speaking out of turn, and I was upset and hurt. It was an unbelievable, it was quite a surreal feeling. So that was my first real thing that, wow, this is, I really have changed. There is a real change inside of me. And a few months later, I was invited by my coach to train as a coach myself, because she too was so amazed by the transformation in my life. I then had a decision to make, whether I made this my career. I had no idea, or I didn't have any thoughts in life on coaching, personal development, therapy, none of these things. I had a financial background. So I did. I launched myself into the coaching. I qualified as a coach. I worked for this lady, Natalie Ledwell, as her coach for around a year. And then I decided I want to set my own business up, and put my own mark on this. And it was truly much more about the relationships at that time. I soon discovered that people cannot move forwards in life simply because of all the rubbish and the stuff that's holding them back, and so then I threw myself into therapy. So I became a clinical hypnotherapist, and then I trained as a psychotherapist. And so I now was able to help people with, the patterns, the programming. I was able to access and help them with stuff that was going on in the subconscious mind, which drives, most of our behaviors. And when a lot of that was healed, we were then able to move forward. So I felt I had some really good tools now with therapy and the coaching. I am qualified in something called brain working recursive therapy, BWRT, and it only deals with the brain. I won't go into too much detail now because we're on relationships today, but it is honestly the most incredible modality I have ever learnt and been trained in. And this is by a guy based in Essex in the UK. So I'm very, very excited to add that to my list of, the tools in my basket, if you like, to help people. Because I always believe we need a lot of stuff, we need a lot of things out there. And I'll just share where I am today. My eldest daughter got married last August. I've been part of her life for a long time now. She invited me to London when her boyfriend at the time left her. We've rekindled that relationship, and now she's a massive part of my life. I absolutely love her dearly. We have an amazing relationship. I've just been to stay with her for 2 weeks in Dubai. So super happy to get that relationship back on board. All three of my children will tell me, and have told me, and tell everyone else, the greatest gift to them is actually me stopping the paradigm. So no longer in their lives will they continue this pattern of behavior that I had learned from my mother, that had been carried down around 4 generations. And so that is the impact that one person can have on an entire family. My mother, very much back in my life, I'm living in her little tiny holiday rental cottage for about 18 months, which she offered to us whilst we build our own home. So I'm very involved in caring for my father, who has serious declining Alzheimer's and dementia. And I can spend a lot of time with mum as well. Mum still does a lot of the same stuff. She's still very controlling. She's still very manipulative. But she is the most amazing woman. As I've changed the perspective of myself, I now see her in a brand new light. And when you do that, when you go through that process of changing how you see yourself, it really honestly changes how you see your entire world and every other relationship you have in your life, which brings me to the relationship with my husband. We've been together 34 years. We've been married just over 30. And I can honestly say I have never, ever been happier. So it is possible for all of us to have long-lasting, meaningful connections with those people who are important to you in your life. They are work, absolutely. But what you get from the work of what you put into the relationship comes out tenfold. And it is truly amazing. Where I am today, it certainly doesn't mean I live in some Zen lifestyle or I don't have any challenges or, life is, easy and what have you. Of course, we have challenges. We have massive challenges with building our own home. But that's really where I am.
Yes.
In a nutshell, and why I do what I do. So it was never in the plans, hey?
What a powerful journey. A complete turnaround. So let's look at that in a little bit more detail. You've already mentioned some of the issues that you were facing, the control and manipulation. What kinds of relationship issues might someone be facing um, that could be resolved, even if they don't think that this is possible? Because you didn't lose hope, you didn't despair, and you found a way. What were maybe some of the key issues or key understandings that helped you?
Very good question. Yeah. I mean, I did have moments where I felt like giving up because I didn't see the results, quickly enough. I thought, well, I'm doing all this work, but I don't feel any different. So to anyone out there who is suffering right now, do not expect the feeling to change straight away. The feeling will come afterwards. It's like the emotion catches up. So the first thing I would encourage people to really focus on is to ask yourself a very important question. Am I trying to change someone else in my life? And if we're talking about your partner, most people that walk into my office or come to the Zoom call with me online are trying to change somebody in their life, particularly their partner or their husband, because we're talking about that relationship right now. Ask yourself that question. Are you trying to change them? And I would probably say 99.9% of people are. They are trying to change somebody or a situation in their lives or control what that person is doing. The reason we do that is simply because we feel out of control inside. And the mind wants to be able to control something. And so if it can't control your thoughts, your feelings, your actions, what happens is you control things in your physical world. And those then become your values, and you place your values on what material goods you have in your life and, what you're driving, where you're living, what you're doing. They become a very, very important part of your life. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And that's a wonderful insight right there.
Yeah, I think it's the very first step is to really look at your life in that way.
Fantastic. Do you feel that there is an essential difference in the relationship with a mother or father or parents that somehow has a bigger impact on us? You did mention the domino effect and those patterns being carried through the generations. And also conversely, what is the common ground in another long-lasting relationship? Say with your husband, you've been happily married for a long time now, and not always happily, right? You had some very tough times. So, what are the commonalities and what are the differences when we look at different types of relationships with loved ones?
When we are born, we're actually born pure, we're just born with pure energy. We're born to love and to be loved at the end of the day. And under the age of 7, we start developing programs, and these programs are developed through learned behavior, through repetition. And the reason we have these programs is so we can function. Otherwise, you wouldn't remember how to get dressed in the morning. You make sense? Yeah. So we have
Yes,
to have,
sure.
as a human being, to function, we all need programs, and particularly under the age of 7, because we have no filter. Children are like little sponges, so there's no filter to change them, give an opinion or anything. They just get dumped in there. So they get dumped into this subconscious part of the mind, and they then drive 95% of your behaviors. Things that are happening to people in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, the way they feel about something often comes from the program that was determined when they were a small child. So I do a huge amount of child work, a huge amount of, healing the trauma from when people are very, very small. So when we are very young, if your mother cannot, for whatever reason, love you in a way that you need to be loved and nurtured, you will feel unlovable. Now, that mother, as we know, mother and father, 99% or 99.9, I don't know, but it's a very, very high figure. We never say 100%, no, Elena, never 100%. But most parents love their offspring. And this is the same also for intelligent mammals. They love their offspring. It may not be that they show that in a way that that child needs to receive that love. So for me, I was a little baby that wanted to be cuddled a lot. I wanted to be nurtured in a certain way. Well, that isn't my mother. That's not her program. But it doesn't mean she doesn't love me. So I grew up literally from birth feeling unlovable. And if you feel unlovable, you're not good enough. Basically, you have zero self-worth. And so throughout my life, if I don't feel good enough, that is how I show up in every area of my life. I become a very needy wife. I become a very needy friend. And this is what we carry through into adulthood. I tried to become a perfectionist, which resulted in an eating disorder, and that is extremely common, along with alcohol addiction, along with using food, along with using drugs, etc., etc., because we are numbing the pain that we are not good enough.
Yes, that makes a lot of sense there. And this carries through to our adult relationships, as you were saying, and obviously affects all of our life, our career choices, and progress in life in other ways. Now, when you connected with your husband, it was before you had done all this work on yourself, right?
It was, yeah. I was 20 years old when I met my husband, and he was 21.
And you know what? It really amazes me to think that a person can change so much and still stay in a relationship with the same partner. I mean, how did you navigate this intense transformation of the two of you together?
Yeah, it was. I really need to really reiterate here. This is my journey. This is my journey, and this is how we want to look at relationships. There's 3 components in a relationship. There's me, there's my husband, and there's a relationship. And we need to totally heal ourselves. And this is, a big part of my couples counseling before we even look at the relationship. So very early on in our relationship, we had the core values. The core values were in alignment, and we had the chemistry. So yes, we had that, even along with all my issues. That was what we had together.
Mhm.
So I still had all my issues, but we also had, you don't just have negative issues in your life. You do have some positive things.
Sure, of course,
I
of
did have
course.
positive things going on. So, we did have those core values. We've got very similar views on which makes life a lot easier, on children, on politics. You don't have to have similar views, but we did.
You
Yeah.
did.
We did, yeah. And I think the biggest thing that kept us cemented together throughout all of this was the fact we had a sense of humor. A sense of
Fantastic.
humor is super important because we all take life way too seriously, for sure. There were moments in our lives, there was moments in all of our lives where you just think you're not going to make it and it's just not worth it. Absolutely. All sorts of problems and issues and challenges come along the way. I'm a very, very different person. Now I'm 54. I forget how old I am now. Yeah. I'm a very different person at 54 to when I met my husband at 20. There is no denying that. He is also physically, you know, we're both very different, mentally, emotionally, etc., etc. And the relationship, you know, I really look at going, it flows and it ebbs. Sometimes you're pulling apart, sometimes you're pulling together. Sometimes you're pulling apart, sometimes you're pulling together. It is the moments where you are in crisis. It's those moments where you grow. It is not the good times. It is the moments in how you deal with those challenging situations. And that is what makes a relationship.
That is very powerful indeed. And did you find that the intensity with which you have pursued your own journey of growth, of evolution, has inspired your husband as well?
Yes, now this is key. Listeners, please hold on to this. Not many people like to be told anything. In fact, people actually don't like to be told anything. So the message got transpired to my husband through my energy. I have had very, very few conversations with him, especially about my personal stuff and my past. You know what? To have an amazing relationship, you do not have to divulge all of your information. Absolutely not. It was the energy that I was giving to my husband. In very basic terms, we have 3 ways of communicating: your spoken word, your behavior, and your energy, more how you feel. I'll just give you a quick example there, Elena, so people can understand.
Yes, please.
Let's just say you have a big row in the morning with your husband, right? The day goes by, you come in the evening and you just don't want to deal with this row, but it's still there. You're still feeling really angry about it, but you just don't want to deal with it. So you come through the door, you can say the right thing. Hello, darling, have you had a good day? Great, you said the right thing. You can do the right thing. You can give him a massive hug. Great, you've done the right thing. Now, if you feel angry, hurt, and upset and disappointed with that man, that's the message he gets. Above all of you speaking and doing the right thing and you behaving in that way. That is the power of your energy. So can you see how powerful it is that when you change yourself, when you heal your stuff, this is what gets projected out of you.
Can I just hold you there for a moment?
Yeah.
I love this example you brought up, and I'm sure a lot of listeners will recognize this. Okay, so in that scenario, you're feeling hurt and you're angry and frustrated, and it's maybe still a bit too much. So how should you come back? Well, what would you say is the way to handle those emotions? And should you communicate them in some way, or how do you manage your energy? What do you do?
Great question. So we want to heal ourselves first so that we can come to the table, if you like, with a different perspective. So we ask ourselves, what has been triggered inside of me from this argument, for instance? What has been triggered? Is it hurt? Is it anger? Where is that hurt coming from? Where is that anger coming from? Because it won't be from this situation. It will be from a past situation. This situation, this argument has just triggered it. So we look at healing our own hurt and anger first. So when we are healed, if you like, we can then have the conversation. Right, I really didn't like the way that you spoke to me like that, or I really am unhappy with what is going on, etc., etc. So we're not coming with our own energy to the table. And this works brilliantly in the workplace. It's exactly the same thing. So in the workplace, if a boss has upset you because he screamed and shouted, once we've healed ourselves, we can then go back to the boss, have the conversation without bringing our own stuff into that. Does that make sense?
Yes. So you're suggesting taking some time out to look inside and to perhaps process some of these emotions. And what I'm hearing is there's an assumption of personal responsibility, not making the other person's, not blaming or focusing on blaming the other, but looking to find something within that we ourselves have power over, that we can see in ourselves and acknowledge in ourselves, and kind of take ownership of our emotions. Is that right?
Absolutely, absolutely, because we are totally responsible for our emotions. So if someone has made you upset, you are responsible actually for healing that upset, and you're also responsible to taking that on board. You may choose not to take that on board. You know, people are actually talking about themselves, and so we always make it about us. So it could well be that your husband just is blaming you because that's what he does. He couldn't possibly take that on board, that he's done something wrong, or it could be possibly his fault. So he's
Yes.
going to blame you.
And now, together with this personal responsibility, there's also the question of boundaries, because if somebody, for example, is thinking of a more extreme case of in an abusive relationship and so on, then surely there's something to be said there about clear boundaries.
Clear boundaries are extremely important. You're 100% correct, and I totally agree with you. Absolutely. And we're not used to putting boundaries in place. A boundary is for you. It is saying yes to you and no to them. And if you are being constantly abused, you have to question yourself, why are you in that relationship? Why are you in that relationship? That is the first question that you need to ask yourself. So a boundary is something that you put in place. It is actually no to the action. It's actually not even a no to the person, but it is saying yes to you. Yes, I'm not going to subject myself to this mental, verbal, definitely not physical abuse, emotional abuse, whatever the abuse is. You can choose whether you are going to stay in that position.
Yes. Wow. This is so helpful, I think, and it speaks to such deep experiences I think we've all shared at some point in our lives. Now, let's move away from the crises for a moment. Okay, and let's think about some good times, and let's bring ourselves to the place where now we don't have like the big explosions or big challenges, and things are mostly okay. But how can we make it even better? How can we deepen our relationships, and how can we help them and nurture them so that they last a long and happy life?
Good thing. So some of the things that really, in a long-term relationship is communication, so that we are able to effectively communicate. And we, Ian and I give each other time and attention when we're talking about things. So you're not on your phone, you're not looking out the window, you're not looking as if you want to rush out. Give that person time. Give that person time, even if it's 5 minutes, if it's 10 minutes. Listen to them. Do not listen to reply. It is absolutely key. Communication is one of the most important things. Treating each other with respect from day one. And this means having respect for yourself first. So ask yourself every day, am I respecting me? Am I respecting me? We all need passion in our lives. Honestly, passion is something I'm hugely passionate about.
Mm-hmm.
When you
Wonderful.
feel passionate about something, it actually colors your life. And this is really key to a marriage. Really key to a marriage. So discover what your passions are. It will really, really help you in keeping the relationship alive, keeping it interesting. You've got to keep this relationship interesting, otherwise it will become boring. You've got to keep working at it. And I've mentioned this before, is humor, because when we can see the humor in a challenge, when you can laugh at the end of the day, you may not laugh at that moment, it may not even be at the end of that day, it may be at the end of the week, but when you can find the humor in one of your biggest challenges, that cements. It really does start cementing things. I love the fact that we have daily rituals together, and that might be having a cup of tea in the morning together. It might be holding hands. Whatever it is for you, just do something. It might be a hug. It could be the dog walk for Ian and I, because we work funny hours. It's always the dog walk. We would always go together because that's our time. We connect. So try and find a daily ritual that you can do together, and trusting not only yourself, because when you learn to trust yourself, what happens is you're able to be vulnerable with the other person, and to share your vulnerabilities is really what takes a relationship to a complete new level. And when you share a vulnerability, so you're really trusting that this is okay, you do that without any expectation. So your partner, your husband may not even want to listen to you, may not say anything about it, but you've shared it. You sowed a seed that it's okay for them to share a vulnerability later on. And it's much more difficult for men sometimes, most of the time, to share their emotions and how they feel about situations. But that is what being vulnerable is about. So you've got to learn to be trusting of yourself. Being friends is an absolute must to stay together for the long term. It really is. And it takes time. Friendships take time. They really take time. And at the end of the day, ask yourself one question. Can I live without him? And just see what comes up for you. So those are some of the things that I think that, we've learned to master over a long period of time, and other people. And they're some of the key elements to look and to start working towards, to keep that long-term relationship going. Because there's no point in having a relationship. It doesn't really matter if you've been together 20, 30 or 40 years. If you're miserable, what's the point? It's got to be something that it is continually growing and evolving. I've also got a few questions here, Elena. I don't know if the listeners would like to hear now, that are very powerful questions. In fact, they're so powerful. Quite a few of my clients actually have these questions on their fridges.
Okay.
It's funny because it just, not everybody is going to be able to ask these at first. But when we ask them, we always ask them without an expectation, that they honestly take your relationship to another level. And it must have been about 5 years ago now. I went on holiday with my husband, and he just turned to me absolutely out of the blue. I was not expecting this. And he said, wow. He said, I think our relationship's gone to a new level. I don't even really know what that means. But anyway, I thought I'd just say it. It was just so fun, because I'm sure he didn't, he wasn't quite sure what he was on about, but he just felt something shift inside of him. And some of that came from being able to ask these questions.
Okay, we're all ears.
Yeah. So it's much more difficult for men to verbalize things, especially their emotions. So one of the questions you can ask, and this really shows your vulnerability, is what do you find most difficult to put into words? And how can I help you with this? You just let it go. You just let it go. Another question, and I'm not talking sexually here. Mm-hmm. Would you like to be physically touched more often? Another question, what are your feelings about our sex life? Now, very, very few people ever ask this question. I have worked with couples who've been married for 20 years and they have very, very unfulfilling, unsatisfying sex lives, but they would never talk about it. So it's a feeling you can ask, it's a question you can ask, or you just put it out there. Don't expect an answer, but it gets that other person thinking about it. Yeah, what are my feelings about it? Yeah, I'm really not happy about it. Yeah. Another question, have I offended you in any way recently? That's a really good question to ask at the end of the week. I love this question. What will make coming home at the end of the day even better for you? Never assume your partner just wants a cup of tea as soon as he comes home through the door and wants to hear about your day. Never assume that. He may want time on his own. He may want to rush up to the office. He may want to go to the gym. Don't take it personally about you. Don't take it personally about you. He may need to unwind. So just ask the question and let it go. Another question, what are you stressed about right now? And can I help you in some way? Now, this is a question I ask my husband regularly. And generally I get the reply back, no, there's nothing you can do. It's way out of your depth. But here lies the golden nugget. Once we start the conversation, he can see the situation in a different light. and mention something really small that I can do to alleviate the stress. Here, this shows that I care, even though I can't resolve it all. So you can't resolve the issues that are going on at work with your husband, but you can alleviate some of the stress or look at it in a different way. So it's a really key question. Another question, would you like more time alone, or do you want some more time together this week? How are you feeling about it? This is what I really, really struggled with. I really struggled this because I used to take it very personally that he wanted more time by himself to sort some stuff out, or to work on a project, or to exercise. And I would take it all to heart that he didn't like me, because that was me in my old needy ways. Hey? Now, a question to ask yourself. Have you had an argument this week that hasn't been resolved? To ask that question yourself. And I know the first thing that will come to mind is, I don't want to bring up those bad feelings again. But the trouble is, if you leave resentment, it festers and it grows, and it will, I promise you, rear its ugly head again, because you'll get another trigger. So we want to be able to face these challenges, not bury them inside of us. Is there something I can do to make you feel more loved? It's a great question when you're in your quiet moments. What's one thing you feel our relationship is lacking? That's a great question to ask every month. And that's what I actually do on the first of the month. Do you think there's anything we're lacking this month? Another thing that actually gets really deep is, what's your biggest fear for our relationship? And getting clear on explaining your fear first often puts them at ease, so that they can be vulnerable themselves, and don't expect them to answer straight away. You're sowing seeds, and setting the scene, if you like, setting the scene. And then the final one is to ask him how he would describe love to you. Very, very interesting question, that one, and comes up with a lot of different stuff. But before you launch into that question yourself, know yourself. What does it mean to you yourself? So before you ask him anything, know the answers yourself. So I really hope that some of you will take some of those questions on board, because they will strengthen your relationship. Relationships do not happen by themselves. And when you have these conversations, make sure you haven't got any distractions: phones, computers, TV, kids about, pets. You want a clear space. We try and put 15 to 20 minutes time aside just together to be ourselves. Not talking about work, not talking about kids, not talking about money, not talking about my business. Just talking about us. How are we today? How are we doing? Because really happy, healthy relationships have great meaning, and they also take work. But honestly, your relationship could be the best thing that's ever happened in your life. And I would honestly say my marriage is far better now than it's ever been, we've got challenges, and it's not about not having challenges. It's not about being in some cuckoo Zen place, if you like. It's being together. It's about being together and working together, and always have a joint goal and always have a personal goal. Always, 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 always. So we have a joint goal of building our own home. I have a personal goal of running my own business, so that you're always working towards something together. It's so important. So I hope that's helped a little bit.
Yes, that's amazing. Thank you so much. Such beautiful wisdom, and also very practical, something that we know now to do. And what I noticed immediately listening to those questions you shared with us is this availability to listen, or really to understand the other person, and a willingness to be maybe not completely selfless, but less self-serving, and perhaps give them what they need, right?
Absolutely. And we can only give someone what they need if we are healed ourselves.
Yes.
You give what you've got in your cup. And so that's why we must always, always, always look after ourselves first. And so that's why we do our own self-healing and our own self-healing practice.
Yes.
So that we can show up and we can give. And it's all about giving without expectation. It's giving without expectation. So do not expect anything from your partner.
That's very interesting, because a lot of the time we hear about the importance of knowing what you need and knowing to ask for what you need. But what you're saying is focus on giving.
100%. So when we have, I like to look at it that, let me describe this. Let me think quick. Okay. I think a lot of people will go into a relationship and they want to fit like a jigsaw. So what they haven't got, they're looking for in the other person. And that then becomes a match. Does that make sense? So
Yes.
yeah. Now that is a very dangerous game to play, because that person may be able to fulfill your need at that moment in your life. So back in your 20s, yeah, that person fulfilled the fun part of my life. Now, if something happens and that person isn't fun or can't give you, or something happens, you are then left depleted, because you have absolutely no idea how to fulfill your own needs. So I truly believe that when we are feeling whole ourselves, so it's two whole people come together, they can give so much more. Because I know how to create my own feelings. I am not reliant, I used to be, I know this very well, but I am not reliant on my husband for my happiness. And it's a good job as well, because he works away from home a lot. So I would be waiting for him, I'd be unhappy for the next week if you like. But so we do not become reliant upon others. Now, when we talk about expectations, I don't expect him to fulfill any of my needs. But that is very different to the relationship. We have expectations of the relationship, not of the self. So
Interesting.
I was talking about three things. There's me, there's Ian, and there's the relationship. So I need to be totally healed first and changed before I can even look at the relationship. Otherwise, if I have got stuff going on inside of me that makes me a very needy wife, and I was a very, very needy wife, it was never enough. And he used to turn to me, he said, look, I love you. I don't know what more do you want? What more do you want? And I thought, well, I don't know. I don't know really, because it wasn't enough because of my own past stuff. Yeah. So once we are healed ourselves, we understand ourselves. We know what our values are. We know what our boundaries are. We know what is appropriate for us and what is not appropriate for us. We know what we're going to stand for. We know that it is not appropriate for someone to come in at 2:00 in the morning drunk. That is not acceptable in my life. That is a boundary, that is whatever. Equally, I know he would never do that, because he knows that he would have crossed my boundary, if that makes sense.
It's just fascinating. I wish we could talk all day, but we are nearing the end of our conversation today, and I just would love you to share with us some of your great free giveaways for our listeners. There's a PDF guide on 5 ways to increase your emotional intelligence. Could you tell us a bit more about that?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a very involved guide, and it takes you through the 5 steps that we really need to go through so we become emotionally intelligent. And emotionally intelligence really means you understand yourself, so you can choose your own thought, you can choose what you think, you can choose how you act, choose how you feel, and choose how to show up in the world. And it's fundamental. It couldn't be more powerful in today's age, where we have so many more stresses than we've ever had in our lives. So we need to be able to navigate through these daily stresses. So it's a fully comprehensive guide taking you through those 5 steps of becoming emotionally intelligent, so you truly understand yourself, because only when you understand yourself can you possibly understand anyone else.
Wonderful. You're also contributing to our free monthly prize draw with your ebook, How to Be Amazing in Your Life. Tell us about that.
Yeah, that's a little snapshot. It's 84 inspiring days, and it takes you through it's basically based on my therapy coaching course. So it takes you through from, the rock bottom place where you might be right now, right up to, celebrating those wins in life. So it's a beautiful little book put together by myself and Judy Rofe, on 84 days of inspiration.
Wonderful. So for our listeners, we'll send you details of how to claim your free PDF guide on 5 ways to increase your emotional intelligence and enter the free prize draw for the ebook, How to Be Amazing in Your Life. Just send us an email to soulconnections@elenaangel.com. soulconnections@elenaangel.com. And you can get in touch with Louise by visiting her website, which is?
It is www.louise, Louise-Armstrong, ARMSTRONG.com. So there's all the information on that. And I also have 2 little PDFs just for you today, all about long-term relationships. One is the 10 skills the best long-term partners have mastered. And the second one is 10 questions to ask your partner to deepen your relationship. So I also have those 2 little PDFs if anyone would like those.
That's fantastic. So visit www.louise-armstrong.com. It's also possible to contact Louise through this site, and there's details of her Emotional Intelligence Mastery online course. Such a great treasury of tools for us. Thank you so much. I'll just mention you can find Louise on Facebook. She has a Facebook group called
Let's Talk Relationships and
Let's
Life.
Talk Relationships and Life. She's on Instagram as Louise Armstrong Coach. She's on YouTube, LinkedIn, and just get in touch with us if you would like some more information about all of this. Thank you so much, Louise. It's been wonderfully insightful to talk with you today. Do you have any final message for our listeners?
My final message is there is always hope. It doesn't matter how awful your past was. It doesn't matter how terrible your childhood was. It doesn't matter what situation you're in right now. Every single one of you out there has so much hope to create the most amazing relationship with yourself, which will allow you to connect and make amazing relationships with other people. There is hope for everyone. There's no one excluded in this. So never, ever give up.
Beautiful. Thank you. And on this note, we'll wrap it up. Thank you so much, Louise, and I hope to connect with you again soon.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been amazing, and you and I could talk forever, I know.
Yes, we probably will for another interview. Well, thanks again.
Now, wasn't that just amazing? Such a practical approach to getting right to the very core of your feelings, your desires, your aspirations for yourself, and for your relationships. I love those questions that Louise suggested, and I'm definitely going to use them in the next few days. I'm really curious to see what emerges. I'd love to hear what emerges for you too when you ask your partner and yourself those questions. Please also write and share what else really resonated with you. Do you have any questions? Are there any persistent challenges that perhaps we can help with? Send us your questions, feedback, anything you'd like to share about your journey, and also send us your prize draw entry and claim your free giveaways. Send your email to soulconnections@elenaangel.com. soulconnections@elenaangel.com. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Join me again for more soulful conversations and explorations in consciousness in next week's episode. Goodbye for now. This is Elena Angel and Soul Connections.
Thanks for tuning in to tonight's broadcast. We hope you enjoyed the show and look forward to you being with us for the next edition of Soul Connections, where you can always find soulful topics and inspiring guests. To find out more about Elena, her work, and how to get in touch, just go to www.elenaangel.com. From all of us to all of you, blessings from Soul Connections.